Hi. All right, so this will be somewhat of a break from OVS stuff. So I'm Ethan. I'm going to talk about my research Quilt, which I'm doing with my advisor, Scott Schenker. And basically, the problem we're trying to tackle here are APIs for network virtualization and compute virtualization systems. And if you think about, like, now that we've figured out how to virtualize these systems and we're exposing APIs, less work has gone into what's the right architecture for these APIs. There's two dominant approaches right now. You've got RESTful APIs and you've got static data serialization formats. And fundamentally, what we're arguing is that these current approaches aren't sufficiently expressive to describe distributed systems effectively. So specifically, and I don't have time to describe why in a lightning talk, but they lack composability. You can't take descriptions of two different systems and join them together very easily. They lack portability. If you deploy a system in one environment, it's hard to do it in a different environment. And they're hard to evolve. So we propose in Quilt that a better API for distributed systems is actually a full-fledged programming language. And programming languages over the past 30 years have developed really good abstractions for doing this sort of stuff. And specifically, we propose Quilt.js, which is a JavaScript framework for doing application specification. So this is what Quilt.js looks like. And you'll note, in the first 3 lines, we sort of organize our infrastructure into some libraries that we import. So we've got HAProxy, MongoDB, et cetera. In the next group of 3 lines, we actually call the functions that we've imported to declare the application containers we'd like to run. And then we can describe how they're connected with further function calls in the last group of 3 lines there. You'll note, like, really basic stuff that's fundamental to programming languages has helped us a lot in this code. So things like variables allow you to avoid rewriting constants all throughout your code. Functions allow you to hide computation and reuse it. And modules are particularly critical to allow you to share specifications among different users without having them needing to know exactly how their internals work. I don't have to understand MongoDB to deploy it and use it. And then we've got a bunch of other nice properties of this. Quilt.js unifies network and compute under a single well-defined API, which JavaScript allows us to do really cleanly. And given a specification written in this high-level language, we can deploy it on a variety of cloud providers. We currently support Amazon EC2, Google Compute Engine. DigitalOcean is in progress, and we can easily add others as time goes on. OK. So this being OVSCon, let me talk about something slightly OVS related. We've been using Oven in this research project for the past year. And in some ways, you can think of Quilt as a policy layer that sits above Oven. So Quilt allows you to describe your network as a graph of names, basically. And it compiles that down into logical switches and logical routers and ACLs, which Oven actually implements. And this works great. Highly recommend you try it out. We're probably the easiest way to deploy a toy Oven deployment in the cloud right now. It's one click. If you go to Quilt.io, you can experiment with it. A little bit of feedback on Oven from our sort of research use case. Like the good, it's incredibly stable. We've been using 2.5, which isn't even an official release yet. And it's more stable than Docker, which is somewhat surprising, or not surprising, depending on your perspective. It also performs quite well. It certainly hasn't been our bottleneck. We're slightly faster than the default Docker networking stack. The bad, OVSDB API is incredibly awkward to access from Go. In Python and C, there's really good libraries that sit above the raw JSON RPC client, but in Go, that doesn't exist yet. And it's incredibly hard to debug. I've been working on OVS for 5 or 6 years, and I'm a little rusty, and I find it hard to debug. UC Berkeley undergraduates are just, it's a little bit much for them. But I'm sure that stuff will get better as the project continues. OK, so wrapping up, Quilt.io is the project. It's a research project that we're turning into an open source project. I see you all have your laptops open, so it should be very easy to open a tab and type in Quilt.io and click the star button on the GitHub project, which will make us look like we're more important than we are. So I'd really appreciate it if you do that. And even better, after you've started the project, you could try it and I'm pretty easy to find on the internet. If you Google Ethan Jackson, you'll find me, and you can give me feedback, and I would really appreciate that. And thank you.